Many Europeans have gone to fight for ISIS. Close to 6,000 of them. And those are just the ones we know about. With the caliphate crumbling, many of these foreign fighters are heading home. But what should be done about them? On November the 13th, 2015, 8 suicide bombers and a gunman attacked Paris, killing 130 people and injuring more than 400. The attackers were French and Belgian nationals, 6 of whom had returned from Syria where they had been fighting with ISIS, also known as ISIL, or Islamic State.
These people have had training, they've had connections with extremist groups. If we look back at the sort of major jihadi battlefields of the past 15 years, we can see pretty much every single one of them has produced individuals from the sort of cohort of people who went out there as foreign fighters who've emerged as a terrorist problem back home.
What to do when fighters return is a major concern for Western governments. One solution is to make sure they never come back. Many foreign fighters have been killed on the battlefield. James Mattis, the American Defense Secretary, says his aim is to make sure the rest won't survive the fight to come home. Those who do survive will face legal obstacles. A number of governments, including Britain's, have passed new laws to try to prevent fighters from returning.
Where they have dual nationality, I have the power to deprive them of their British citizenship and keep them out of our country. But under international law, no country is allowed to make its citizens stateless, and most of those British fighters are likely to return to the UK in the end.
According to one security think tank, of the 850 British citizens known to have joined ISIS, half are already home. Around a third of German and a quarter of Belgian fighters have also returned. And in France, the Western European country with the most foreign fighters, 271 have come back. Governments have to decide what to do with them.
You know, if there's a case that can be built against the individual that they participate in atrocities or they committed atrocities while they were fighting alongside Islamic State, due process will kick in and they will usually go to jail.
Even going to live in ISIS territory is a crime under EU law. Locking up returning fighters demonstrates a tough stance from government and reassures the public. But prison poses its own risks. Many jihadists have previously been in jail before committing attacks.
The government's own officially appointed inspector into the problem of prison radicalisation said that the problem is out of control and that the prisons are jihadist training ground at the moment.
Convicted terrorists should be behind bars. But not all returning fighters fall into this category. Usama Hassan took part in jihad in the 1990s when Soviet forces invaded Afghanistan.
I'm a former foreign fighter and I fought in Afghanistan when I was 19. And of course that was all legal in those days. And Bin Laden was a hero around the Arab world. I was willing to take up arms and fight and die for a noble cause. And that's what I think we have to recognise and understand, is that a lot of young men and women who become terrorists are motivated by noble ideals, by noble causes.
Many foreign fighters travelled to Syria long before ISIS emerged and the brutality and beheadings began. They went to defend fellow Muslims in the uprising against President Bashir al-Assad. Others went to live in the newly declared Islamic State in search of a more pious life.
There were a lot of people who thought that going to ISIS is they're going to build a new utopian society.
Vera Mironova spent 7 months embedded with the Iraqi Special Operation Forces in Mosul, trying to understand what makes ISIS fighters tick.
I was able to visit ISIS houses where they lived, foreign fighters, their bases, to see what books they read, how did they live. And there's like very interesting things we were finding, like love letters and cooking recipes. It's very important to show and to understand that people in ISIS or any other group, they're normal people.
Many who went to live under ISIS have seen and done terrible things. Those who felt the caliphate did not live up to the utopian propaganda wanted out, but faced imprisonment if they went home.
We hear people say, lock them up and throw away the key, but the whole point of our society, a civilized society, is to give people a second chance and give them a chance of rehabilitation.
Not many governments are willing to offer returnees a second chance, but in Denmark they're giving it a try. Instead of prison sentences, some get counselling and help finding jobs and housing. The aim is to combat the root cause of terrorism.
There are a group of people in every country, basically, that feel alienated, that they feel that everyone is against them, that they're basically very unhappy with the whole situation. And then a group comes and they puts an arm around them and says, oh, come on, come to us, we're going to help you.
With ISIS almost defeated on the ground, it may seek to step up terrorist attacks around the world. The Danish authorities hope that former fighters reintegrated back into society will feel less alienated and disillusioned, traits that ISIS recruiters prey upon. But critics cite a lack of hard evidence that the Danish model is working, and rehabilitation is a hard policy to sell.
I think politically it would be very difficult for the government in a Western European country to take an individual who's been fighting alongside a prescribed terrorist organization like ISIS or Al-Qaeda that has made an avowed intent to launch attacks on our country, and for the government to spend a considerable amount of money basically giving this person a life.
It only takes one or two determined individuals to carry out an atrocity. So close surveillance of returning fighters is essential. Even those in prison may eventually be released. But keeping a close watch on just one person long term takes a lot of manpower. So governments face the difficult decision of whom to watch and whom to ignore.